Hey guys, have you ever wondered what it takes to start an oil painting or what it takes to make skin colors for a portrait like this? Then just keep watching and I'll go through the basic steps to starting an oil painting.
First, for the materials. Oil painting can be a little complex, but there are ways to simplify the process. The only absolute necessary items to start a painting would be oil paints. These don't have to be super expensive. You can really only need to buy a couple basic colors like red, yellow, blue, and the tints like black and white. You'll also need brushes, which can be easily found in sets or packs made specifically for oil painting. Paint thinners, reference pictures, a palette, jars to hold paint thinners, proper ventilation, an easel, and a medium to paint on. Now you can also see that I have set down a mat underneath my materials to protect the table that I will be working on. Before I start talking about painting and techniques, I need to point out that oil paints are not toxic. There is a misconception that oils are dangerous to use, but really the paint itself is only made from an oil and a pigment. The only potentially dangerous part would come from different paint thinners used. Since oil paint cannot be diluted with water, various paint thinners made from various different chemicals can be used to add different effects to the paint, such as drying quicker or slower, or thinner or more textured paint layers. These thinners can be toxic, so proper care and ventilation when using paint thinners is very important. Typically, to start a painting, you would need to prime the medium you're painting on, but since I'm painting on a ready-made canvas, I don't need to prime. I start by sketching an outline and basic details of what I want to paint. I always do a rough sketch before painting to plan out on what I want the painting to look like and get organized. Then I start on the background. Always start with the background when oil painting so you can blend top layers into the background and not accidentally smearing details when you're going back in with a background. Having a background set before putting details on also allows for more blending of other layers on top to get a desired effect. As you can see, I take a bit of blue and to make some purple and some white to create like a foggy and subtle background that's not too distracting from the portrait. For painting this subject, you really need to be familiar with color theory and how to create different colors. Color theory is basically the color wheel in understanding which colors to mix in order to get a desired effect. For example, mixing complementary colors such as blue and yellow create muted and muddied colors. For portraits, mixing a little amounts of the primary colors can create skin tones of desired darkness or tone. It's important to take note of the model's undertones as well. People's skin tones usually have warm, cool, or neutral undertones. If the undertones are warmer, then add more red and less blue. But if the undertones are neutral or cooler, then add more yellow. It's also important not to put super pigmented colors on your canvas because it can be hard to create a more realistic colors if they become too exaggerated. When creating a portrait, it's important to use different highlights and shadows of one basic skin color in order to create a more realistic portrait. It would be very unrealistic to use one color the entire time that would not reflect the skin's shadows or highlights, and it would create a more two-dimensional figure. The last step of painting this portrait would be to add details. Specifics like adding light gray to highlighted areas or adding intensity to the shadows. More details that I added were eyelashes, freckles, hair strands, texture in the face and sweater, and texture in the background and hair. After you have finished with an oil painting, make sure not to dump paint thinners down sink drains because they are toxic and that is illegal. You can keep paint thinners stored for next use instead of throwing them away. I am choosing not to varnish my painting because I don't want it to be very glossy looking, but a varnish is a good way to seal a painting when it is complete. It is important to remember that oil paints take a long time to dry, so keeping the painting in a dry, cool place for it to dry would be ideal.
Okay, so I hope this video was helpful about learning how to oil paint and how to create a portrait. Thank you guys for watching.